The black maid helped the chef having a panic attack until the Mafia boss stepped in and saw her hidden strength. Ava Johnson had been working at La Belle Cuisine, one of the finest dining establishments in New York City, for over 2 years. As the only black maid in the restaurant, she often felt invisible, blending into the background, carrying out her duties with quiet precision. The restaurant itself was a place of wealth and extravagance, where the sound of silverware clinking against fine china was a daily symphony. Ava, on the other hand, was part of the invisible workforce that kept everything running smoothly, cleaning the floors, dusting the shelves, and making sure the restaurant always looked pristine. It was a job she had taken to support her family back home. Her mother had fallen ill, and the medical bills were piling up. Ava never asked for much. All she wanted was to be able to provide for her family, to make sure they were taken care of. She kept her head down, focused on the tasks at hand, and tried not to draw attention to herself. But today was different. As Ava was walking past the kitchen, she heard a muffled sound, someone gasping for air, frantic and panicked. Without thinking, she rushed toward the noise. Inside the kitchen, she found Tyler Harrison, the head chef, struggling to catch his breath. His face was pale, and his hands were trembling. Ava had never seen him like this. He was usually the epitome of control, running the kitchen with an iron fist. But now, he was crumbling before her. Ava didn't hesitate. She gently guided him to a chair, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to his panic. "It's okay, Tyler. Just breathe," she said softly. She placed a hand on his shoulder, offering the kind of reassurance she had learned from taking care of her younger siblings. Tyler's breathing slowed, and his eyes filled with tears. I can't do this anymore," he whispered, his voice shaking. "Everything's falling apart." Ava didn't speak at first. She simply stayed by his side, letting him collect himself. It wasn't until his breathing had returned to normal that she spoke again. "You're not alone, Tyler. We all have our moments. Just breathe, okay? You'll get through this." As Ava was about to leave to get some water for him, the door to the kitchen opened with a heavy thud. Dominic Castellano, the Mafia boss, stepped inside, flanked by 2 bodyguards. His sharp eyes swept over the room, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The usual hum of the kitchen fell silent. Dominic's gaze landed on Ava and Tyler. He wasn't known for showing emotion, but today, something was different. He watched quietly as Ava continued to comfort Tyler. His hard expression softened for just a second, and he took a slow step forward. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice cold but not unkind. Ava straightened up, standing a little taller as she turned to face him. "Tyler, he was having a panic attack. I was just helping him calm down," she replied, her voice steady. Dominic studied her for a long moment, and in that brief silence, Ava felt an odd sense of vulnerability. But then, something unexpected happened. Dominic nodded slowly, as if a switch had flipped in his mind. "You handled that well," he said, his voice quieter than usual. Ava wasn't sure if it was the exhaustion of the long day or the weight of his presence, but she felt something stir inside her. For the first time, she wasn't just the invisible maid. She was someone who had made a difference. As Dominic turned and walked out of the kitchen, Ava felt a strange warmth spreading through her chest. She had always believed that kindness and strength went hand in hand, but today, she had proven it to herself. She had shown a side of herself she hadn't known existed, and in doing so, she had earned a respect she never thought she would receive. It had been a few days since Ava had helped Tyler, the head chef, during his panic attack. The incident was still fresh in her mind, though she tried to push it to the back of her thoughts. Life at La Belle Cuisine had returned to its usual rhythm, with the clinking of silverware, the sizzling of food, and the constant bustle of the restaurant. Ava continued with her duties, always in the background, never demanding attention, always invisible. But she couldn't ignore the feeling that something had changed. It wasn't the way people looked at her, but something in the air seemed different, like a quiet respect she had never felt before. For the first time, Ava felt like she wasn't just another part of the invisible workforce. There was a shift in how she viewed herself, but also in how others seemed to see her. She hadn't seen Dominic Castellano, the Mafia boss, since that day in the kitchen. He usually came in and out of the restaurant quickly, always surrounded by his bodyguards, his presence commanding the room without a word. Ava never expected to interact with him again, but she couldn't shake the memory of his soft words after she helped Tyler. "You handled that well," he had said. His voice was still clear in her mind. Ava had never expected anything like that from him. She had been used to people ignoring her, treating her like she was just part of the background noise, something that didn't matter. But Dominic had seen her. He had acknowledged her strength. And that acknowledgement lingered with her, filling her with a sense of purpose she hadn't realized she was missing. A few days later, Ava was cleaning the windows near the back of the restaurant when she noticed Dominic walk in through the front door. This time, he wasn't surrounded by his usual entourage. He was alone, a rare sight. He walked with an air of quiet confidence, his eyes scanning the room before locking on to Ava. For a moment, Ava froze. She had not expected to see him again, and certainly not without his usual guards by his side. Her heart skipped a beat as their eyes met. There was something different about the way he looked at her now. It wasn't the usual coldness. It was softer, almost like there was something more beneath his hardened exterior. He walked towards her with a purpose, and Ava quickly composed herself, trying not to let the nervousness take over. "Ava," Dominic said, his voice smooth and deep. "How are you today?" Ava blinked, caught off guard by the question. She had never spoken to him in a way that wasn't strictly professional. She cleared her throat, trying to steady her nerves. "I'm well, sir," she replied, keeping her voice steady. Dominic nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Good," he said. "I wanted to speak to you for a moment." Ava felt a wave of unease wash over her. She had no idea what this was about. Had she done something wrong? Had someone complained about her? Her heart started to race, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Of course, sir," she replied, trying to sound as composed as possible. Dominic motioned for her to follow him to the side of the restaurant, away from the busy dining area. Ava hesitated for a moment before she followed him, her mind racing with 1,000 questions. He stopped in a quieter area of the restaurant, where no one else could overhear them. Dominic turned to face her, his expression serious but not unkind. "I wanted to thank you," he said, his tone lower now, as though this conversation was more personal than she had expected. "For what you did with Tyler." Ava's brow furrowed in confusion. "I didn't do much, sir. I just helped him." Dominic shook his head, his gaze unwavering. "You did more than that. You were there when he needed it the most, and you helped him in a way that none of us could. It's not easy to stay calm in a situation like that, but you did." Ava didn't know what to say. She had never been praised like this before, especially not by someone like Dominic. She had always been invisible, just a maid doing her job. But now, this powerful man, someone who could command entire empires, was acknowledging her. I didn't expect you to notice, sir," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Dominic's eyes softened, and for a moment, the harshness in his features seemed to fade. "I noticed," he said quietly, "and I want to make sure you know that I see you, Ava, not just as a maid, but as someone who made a difference." Ava felt her heart swell with emotion. It was something so simple, yet it meant more to her than she could put into words. No one had ever said something like that to her before. She had always been just another worker in the shadows, but Dominic's words made her feel like she mattered. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "You don't have to thank me," Dominic said, his gaze steady. "I just want you to know that I see you. You're more than what you think you are." Ava didn't know how to respond to that. She wasn't used to being seen, let alone recognized for her efforts. But in that moment, she felt a warmth inside her, a sense of pride that she hadn't realized she was missing. Dominic took a step back, his usual cold demeanor returning, but there was something different about him now, something more human. "You've earned my respect, Ava," he said, his voice firm once again. "Keep it up." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Ava standing there in the quiet corner of the restaurant, feeling like a new person. She had never expected this day to come, but now that it had, she felt like she could take on anything. The recognition from Dominic was more than just a compliment. It was a reminder that her actions, no matter how small, could make a difference. And for the first time in a long time, Ava believed it. The days that followed Dominic's conversation with Ava were filled with a new sense of purpose for her. The quiet recognition he had given her lingered in her thoughts, and though she tried to continue with her daily tasks as usual, something had shifted. Ava was no longer just the maid in the background. There was a quiet strength that had awakened inside her, a confidence she hadn't realized she possessed. Every morning, as she cleaned the restaurant's windows, she couldn't help but feel different. It wasn't just the pride in her work, but the subtle way the world around her seemed to notice her efforts. It was as though, for the first time, she mattered. The other staff members treated her with a newfound respect. She wasn't invisible anymore. They greeted her with warm smiles, nodding their heads in acknowledgement. It was a small shift, but it meant everything to Ava. One afternoon, as Ava was finishing her shift, she noticed a commotion near the front entrance. The restaurant's elegant glass doors were pushed open, and in walked a couple, dressed to the nines. Ava didn't recognize them at first, but it was hard not to notice the way they carried themselves. The man had the kind of aura that immediately commanded attention, tall, impeccably dressed, and with an air of authority that seemed to radiate from him. He had sharp features, dark eyes, and a calm, calculated demeanor. Ava's heart skipped a beat as she realized it was Dominic, once again walking through the door, this time accompanied by a woman. She was beautiful, with flowing blonde hair and a soft, graceful demeanor, but it was clear from the way she held herself that she was just as much a figure of power as Dominic. Ava's breath caught in her throat. She had seen Dominic many times before, but always in passing, surrounded by his bodyguards. This was different. There was something more intimate about the way he entered now. She quickly resumed her duties, trying not to draw attention to herself, but it was difficult not to notice the quiet tension in the air. Dominic walked with the woman toward a private table, his hand gently resting on her back. They sat down, and the staff began to prepare for their meal. Ava could feel the eyes of the other employees on her, but she kept her focus on the task at hand. She knew her place. Just as she finished clearing a table near the kitchen, she heard Dominic's voice, low and commanding, from across the room. Ava. The sound of her name caught her off guard, and she quickly turned around to see him looking in her direction. For a moment, she thought she had imagined it, but when his eyes locked with hers, she knew he had called her. She felt a flutter of nerves in her stomach. It had been a few days since their last conversation, and she hadn't expected to speak to him again so soon. She made her way to his table, her heart beating a little faster than usual. "Yes, sir?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Dominic's gaze softened when she approached, and for a moment, he looked at her as though he was trying to find the right words. "I wanted to thank you again," he said, his voice calm but sincere, "for what you did the other day. It's not often I see someone handle a situation with such grace." Ava blinked in surprise. She had expected him to perhaps acknowledge her briefly, but the warmth in his voice was unexpected. She wasn't sure how to respond. I just did what I could, sir," she said, her voice soft but steady. Dominic nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "That's exactly why I respect you. You do what's needed, without hesitation." There was a pause before he continued, his tone taking on a slightly more serious edge. "You've proven you're not just someone who stays in the background. You have the strength to stand out when it matters." Ava felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. She had never expected to hear anything like that from him. It wasn't just praise, it was acknowledgement of her worth. Dominic looked over at the woman sitting across from him. "This is my fiancée, Isabella," he said, gesturing to the woman beside him. Isabella smiled warmly at Ava. "Nice to meet you," she said politely. Ava felt a twinge of nervousness but returned the smile, nodding her head in acknowledgement. "It's a pleasure," she said quietly, feeling a bit out of place in the presence of such high-profile people. Dominic's gaze shifted back to Ava. "I know it's not easy, working in a place like this," he said, his voice lower now, as though sharing something more personal. "But you handle it with dignity, and that's not something I take lightly." Ava didn't know what to say. The words were so unexpected, and she wasn't used to being spoken to this way by someone like him. She had always been just another face in the crowd, another worker in the background. But Dominic's words made her feel like she mattered. Like her actions, her strength, had been seen. "Thank you, sir," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. Dominic gave her a small nod. "You've earned my respect, Ava," he said. "And I think it's time we start looking at you in a different light. You have more to offer than you realize." As he finished speaking, Dominic stood up, and for the first time, Ava noticed something in his posture, something softer, more open. He wasn't just the intimidating Mafia boss anymore. He was a man who had acknowledged her, who had seen the strength in her. The recognition, the respect, It was more than she had ever hoped for. Ava stood there for a moment, taking in what had just happened. For the first time, she felt seen, truly seen. She had always been in the background, working tirelessly without much recognition. But now, something had changed. Dominic had seen her, and his words meant more than she could ever express. It had been a week since Dominic's conversation with Ava, and things at La Belle Cuisine had settled into a new normal. Ava had found herself walking through the restaurant with a sense of quiet confidence she had never felt before. She moved with purpose, her steps a little steadier, her posture a little straighter. She had always done her job well, but now there was a weight to her actions, a sense of self-respect she hadn't known she was missing. The change was subtle, but it was there. She had earned Dominic's respect, and that acknowledgement had made all the difference. One afternoon, as Ava was finishing up her shift, she was surprised to find Dominic waiting for her in the back hallway. His usual entourage of bodyguards wasn't with him, and for a moment, Ava wondered if something had gone wrong. But then she saw the look on his face, calm, but not cold. There was a softness to his expression, a quiet understanding. Ava, he greeted her with a nod, his voice low but friendly. Ava froze for a moment, unsure of what to expect. She had been doing her best to keep a low profile, continuing with her tasks without drawing too much attention. "Sir?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Dominic looked at her for a long moment, as though weighing his words. Finally, he spoke again. "I wanted to ask you something," he said, his tone slightly more serious than usual. "Would you be willing to take on more responsibility here?" Ava blinked, taken aback by the question. She had never been asked to do anything outside of her normal duties. "More responsibility, sir?" she asked cautiously. Dominic nodded. "I think you've proven you're capable of more than just cleaning. I've been keeping an eye on you, Ava, and I think it's time for you to step up. I want you to start overseeing the staff in the back, helping to manage things during the rushes." Ava's heart raced in her chest. She had never imagined being asked to take on a leadership role in the restaurant. She had always been content to do her job quietly, in the background. But the idea of being given more responsibility was both thrilling and terrifying. I don't know if I'm ready for that, sir," Ava admitted, her voice hesitant. Dominic smiled softly, his gaze unwavering. "You're more ready than you realize. I've seen how you handle yourself. You've got the right qualities: patience, strength, the ability to stay calm under pressure. I think you'll do well." Ava stood there, stunned. She had always believed she was just a maid, just a part of the background. But Dominic was offering her something more. He was offering her the chance to step into the light, to be more than just the woman who cleaned the floors. It was a chance to be seen, to have her strength recognized. "I'll give you some time to think about it," Dominic added, his voice gentle. "But know this, Ava, I wouldn't ask you if I didn't believe in you." Ava felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of gratitude she had never felt before. No one had ever believed in her like this. No one had ever given her the chance to prove herself. "Thank you, sir," she said quietly. "I'll think about it." Dominic nodded, giving her a final, reassuring smile before turning to leave. As he walked away, Ava stood there, her mind racing with thoughts of what this opportunity could mean for her. She had always been content with staying in the background, but now, for the first time, she was being given the chance to step forward. And the thought of it filled her with both excitement and fear. She knew this was a turning point. This was her chance to prove to herself, and to everyone else, that she was more than just the maid. That night, as Ava lay in bed, she couldn't stop thinking about what Dominic had said. She had spent so much of her life feeling invisible, unnoticed. But now, for the first time, she was being seen. She was being recognized for her strength, for her calm demeanor in the face of adversity. And the opportunity to take on more responsibility was something she couldn't ignore. The next morning, as she walked into work, she felt a sense of determination that had been missing before. She knew she was ready for this new challenge. She had always been capable, but now she was ready to prove it. The restaurant was busy, as usual, and the staff was hustling to keep up with the rush. But for the first time, Ava felt like she was part of something bigger. She wasn't just the one who cleaned up after everyone else. She was part of the team. As the hours passed, Ava worked alongside the others, keeping everything running smoothly. She directed the servers, helped the kitchen staff, and kept everything organized. It was a lot of responsibility, but it felt right. It felt like she was finally stepping into the role she had always been meant to play. By the end of the day, as the restaurant began to wind down, Dominic appeared again, this time with Isabella at his side. They sat at their usual table, and Ava couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in the way she had handled the day. As she passed their table, Dominic looked up and gave her a nod of approval. "You did well today, Ava," he said quietly. "I knew you were capable." Ava smiled, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. For the first time, she felt like she was truly seen, not just by Dominic, but by herself. She had stepped up, and she had proven that she was more than just the maid. She was someone who could make a difference. And that, she realized, was the most empowering feeling of all. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind for Ava. Her new responsibilities at La Belle Cuisine seemed to grow by the day. She had proven herself capable, handling everything with calm efficiency, and the respect from the staff continued to grow. Her role had evolved from that of a quiet maid to a key figure behind the scenes, and it was a shift that filled her with a quiet pride. But as much as she relished the new position, it also brought with it a new set of challenges. Managing the staff wasn't as easy as it appeared. There were moments of tension, disagreements among the team, and pressure from Dominic to maintain the highest standards. But Ava handled it all with grace, her natural ability to stay calm under pressure making her the perfect person to navigate the storm. One particular evening, as the dinner rush began, Ava found herself in the kitchen, helping the line cooks organize the dishes. The air was thick with the smell of searing meat and spices, and the sounds of the bustling kitchen filled the room. It was a delicate balance of orchestrating chaos, but Ava was becoming a master at it. Just as she was about to head back to the front to check on the waitstaff, she heard a familiar voice. "Ava, come here for a moment." It was Dominic. She turned to find him standing by the kitchen's back door, his expression as calm as ever. His usual entourage was nowhere to be seen, and it seemed like a rare moment of quiet between them. "Yes, sir?" Ava asked, walking over to him. Dominic regarded her for a moment, his eyes searching her face as if gauging her reaction. "I've been watching you," he said, his voice soft but firm. "You've really stepped up, and I've noticed." Ava's heart skipped a beat. She had always respected Dominic, but hearing him acknowledge her efforts made everything she had worked for feel even more worthwhile. "Thank you, sir," she replied, her voice steady, though she felt a sense of warmth spreading inside her. Dominic gave a small nod, a rare smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "You've proven that you can handle the responsibility. That's why I've decided to promote you." Ava blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "Promote me, sir?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dominic nodded again, this time more deliberately. "You're going to take over as the lead supervisor of the entire staff. I want you to manage the kitchen, the waitstaff, and the rest of the crew. You'll be the one who keeps things running smoothly when I'm not around." Ava's mind raced. This was more than she had ever expected. Lead supervisor? She had always dreamed of being more than just the background player, but she had never imagined she would be given this much responsibility. I don't know what to say," she stammered, her surprise evident. Dominic smiled again, a genuine smile this time. "You don't have to say anything. You've earned this position. I believe in you." The words resonated deeply with Ava. For so long, she had felt like an invisible part of the restaurant, just another cog in the machine. But now, Dominic was not only seeing her, but also entrusting her with a vital role. It was more than just a promotion. It was validation of everything she had worked for. "Thank you, sir," she said again, her voice filled with sincerity. "I won't let you down." Dominic nodded, his expression turning more serious. "I know you won't. You've already proven yourself. I trust you to keep things running smoothly." Ava felt a surge of pride as he spoke. She wasn't just being promoted because of her technical skills, but because Dominic saw something in her, a strength, a quiet leadership, that no one else had recognized before. As the evening wore on, Ava continued her work, her new position weighing on her mind. She had always been the one who did the work without complaint, never seeking recognition. But now, she was being asked to lead. It was a challenge she hadn't anticipated, but one she was more than ready for. When the dinner service ended, and the restaurant began to empty out, Ava found herself standing by the front door, looking out into the quiet streets of the city. The weight of her new role settled in, but instead of feeling overwhelmed, she felt a sense of excitement. She had earned this. and she was ready to rise to the challenge. As she turned to head back inside, she caught sight of Dominic once more, standing near the bar, talking quietly with a few of the staff members. She watched him for a moment, noting the ease with which he carried himself. He wasn't just the Mafia boss. He was a leader, someone who commanded respect and loyalty without having to ask for it. Ava knew she had a long road ahead of her, and there would be moments when she would doubt herself. But one thing was certain. She was no longer just the maid. She was part of something bigger, something that she had helped build. And as the doors of the restaurant swung open, Ava knew that this was only the beginning. The transition to her new role was not easy for Ava, but she embraced the challenge with a determination she hadn't known she possessed. As the lead supervisor, she found herself navigating a maze of responsibilities. From coordinating between the kitchen and waitstaff to handling customer complaints and ensuring the restaurant ran smoothly during the busiest hours, Ava had her hands full. But there was a quiet confidence in her now, something that allowed her to manage the chaos with a calm and collected demeanor. The respect from the staff was palpable. They looked to her for guidance, for answers, and she provided them without hesitation. It wasn't long before Ava realized how much more was required of her. She had to balance her newfound responsibilities with the expectations of Dominic, who had been observing her closely. Though he rarely spoke much during their brief interactions, she could feel his eyes on her, always watching, always assessing. It was both an honor and a pressure that Ava hadn't anticipated. One evening, as the dinner service began, Ava found herself in the kitchen, helping organize the line cooks. The kitchen was hot, the clattering of pots and pans creating a familiar rhythm, and the scent of roasted meats and fresh herbs filled the air. Ava was in the midst of checking the inventory when she saw Dominic walk through the kitchen door. He wasn't flanked by his usual bodyguards, and he didn't seem in a rush. His gaze met hers, and there was something different in the way he looked at her. It wasn't the usual detached authority she had grown accustomed to. Instead, there was a sense of quiet approval in his eyes. "Ava," Dominic said, his voice calm but authoritative. "I wanted to speak with you for a moment." Ava felt her pulse quicken, unsure of what he wanted to discuss. "Yes, sir," she replied, walking over to him. Dominic gestured toward a quieter corner of the kitchen, away from the bustle. "I've been watching how you handle things," he began, his voice steady. "You've been doing well. Very well." Ava felt a warm flush spread across her chest at the praise. She wasn't used to receiving compliments, especially not from someone like Dominic. "Thank you, sir," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Dominic gave a small nod before continuing, his gaze intense. "But there's more I need from you." Ava's heart skipped a beat. More? She had been giving everything she had, but now it seemed like there was another level of responsibility she had to reach. "I've been considering how I can further integrate you into the operations here," Dominic continued, his tone serious. "You've proven yourself capable, Ava, and now I need you to take on even more." Ava felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. She had already been given so much responsibility. Could she handle more? Dominic seemed to sense her hesitation. "You've got this," he said, his voice softer than before. "I'm not asking you to do this alone. I'll be here to support you, but I need you to be ready for the next step." He paused for a moment, letting the weight of his words settle in. "I want you to start working directly with our clients, ensuring their needs are met and that the restaurant's reputation remains pristine. I want you to manage the front of the house, not just the back. You'll be the one who makes sure everything runs seamlessly." Ava's mind raced. She had never expected to be this involved with the customers. It was one thing to manage the staff, but to be the face of the restaurant? It was a huge leap. "Are you sure, sir?" she asked, her voice unsure. "I don't want to disappoint you." Dominic's gaze softened. "I have no doubt in you, Ava. You've proven yourself time and time again. This is your chance to show everyone, yourself included, that you're more than just the person who keeps the place running. You're the one who can make it thrive." His words hit her like a jolt of electricity. She was more than just a maid. She had always been told that her place was in the background, out of sight, out of mind. But now, Dominic was telling her that she had the power to shape the direction of the restaurant, to influence the experience of every guest who walked through the door. She had never imagined this kind of future for herself. "Thank you, sir," Ava said, her voice stronger than before. "I won't let you down." Dominic gave her a reassuring smile, his eyes never leaving hers. "I know you won't," he said simply before turning and walking out of the kitchen. As he left, Ava stood there, stunned by what had just transpired. She had been given the opportunity of a lifetime, one that so many others would have envied. But with that opportunity came a responsibility she hadn't expected. It wasn't just about running the back of the house anymore. It was about shaping the future of the entire restaurant. The weight of it all felt overwhelming, but at the same time, Ava felt a surge of excitement. This was her chance to prove herself, not just to Dominic, not just to the staff, but to herself. The rest of the night passed in a blur of activity. Ava worked tirelessly, checking on the staff, ensuring everything was running smoothly, and preparing herself for the changes that were coming. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but she was no longer afraid. She was ready for them. As the night wound down, Ava found herself standing at the front door, looking out into the city streets. The lights of the city glimmered in the distance, and she realized just how far she had come. She had gone from being the invisible maid to someone who was now trusted with the future of La Belle Cuisine. She had always believed that she was meant for something more, and now, for the first time, she was beginning to see that her belief had been right. The weeks passed, and Ava's new role at La Belle Cuisine began to take shape. She was now the lead supervisor, a position that placed her at the helm of the restaurant's daily operations. It was a challenge she had never imagined for herself, but with each passing day, she grew into it more confidently. Ava's responsibilities had expanded beyond simply managing the back of the house. She was now directly involved with the front, overseeing the interactions with customers, ensuring that the service was impeccable, and that the restaurant maintained its reputation as one of the finest dining establishments in the city. There were still moments of doubt, moments when Ava questioned whether she was truly ready for this level of responsibility. But each time, she reminded herself that Dominic had seen something in her, something she had yet to fully recognize in herself. The staff respected her, the customers trusted her, and the restaurant seemed to flourish under her watch. Yet, despite her growing confidence, there was still an air of uncertainty. Ava was not used to being in the spotlight. She had spent most of her life being invisible, working tirelessly in the background. Now, every decision she made felt like it was under a microscope. Her interactions with the staff, the way she handled difficult customers, and how she managed the flow of the kitchen, all of it was now scrutinized. One evening, as Ava was organizing the dining room for a special event, she felt a familiar presence behind her. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. "Dominic." "Ava," he said, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable weight. Ava turned to face him, her heart skipping a beat. Even after all this time, his presence still had a way of making her feel like she was standing before someone larger than life. "Yes, sir," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Dominic studied her for a moment, his eyes narrowing slightly as if he were assessing her in a way only he could. "I've been watching you," he said, his tone softening. "You've done well. The restaurant is running smoother, the staff is responding well to your leadership, and we're getting positive feedback from customers. You've proven you can handle this job." Ava felt a surge of pride at his words. It was a validation she had longed for, not from anyone else, but from Dominic himself. She had always been aware of how high the stakes were, how much was riding on her success in this position. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice barely a whisper, overwhelmed by the weight of the praise. Dominic gave a small nod. "But I think it's time we talk about the future," he continued. Ava's heart skipped a beat. The future? She had been focused so much on the present, on managing each day, that she hadn't given much thought to what was next. "What do you mean, sir?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. "I mean," Dominic said, his voice lowering slightly, "it's time for you to expand your role even further." Ava blinked, her mind racing. Expand? How could she possibly take on more? She was already managing the restaurant's operations. "I've been thinking about how I want to structure things here," Dominic said, his voice steady. "You've proven yourself as a leader. You've earned my trust. I want to give you more influence, more control over the direction of the restaurant. I'm offering you a partnership. You'll have a stake in the business." Ava's eyes widened. A partnership? This was something she never could have imagined in her wildest dreams. The idea of being more than just an employee, of having a true ownership stake in something she had worked so hard to build, was beyond her comprehension. I don't know what to say." Ava stammered, overwhelmed. You don't need to say anything now, Dominic said with a slight smile. Think about it. This is a big decision, and I want you to feel confident in whatever choice you make. But know this, Ava. You have the skills, the drive, and the vision to take this restaurant to new heights. Ava stood there, taking in his words. She had spent so long working just to survive, just to get by. Now, Dominic was offering her a chance to thrive, to build something of her own. She had come so far, from being a quiet maid in the background to being offered a stake in the very business she had helped sustain. The weight of the offer was immense, and for a moment, Ava wasn't sure if she was ready. But deep down, she knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This was her moment to step into the future, to shape her own destiny. Thank you, sir, she said softly, her voice steady now. I'll think about it carefully. Dominic gave her a knowing smile, his eyes softening. Take your time. But remember, Ava, I'm offering you this because I believe in you. As he walked away, Ava stood there, her mind reeling. The restaurant was more than just a place where she worked. It was now a part of her, and with Dominic's offer, it could be something even greater. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future beyond just being the maid, the invisible worker in the background. She could be more. She would be more. That night, as Ava sat in her small apartment, she thought long and hard about what Dominic had said. She had always been content to work hard, to do what was asked of her, to stay in the shadows. But now, the shadows no longer felt like home. The future she had always dreamed of was right in front of her, and it was within her reach. She had the chance to build something lasting, something that would give her the life she had always wanted. And for the first time, Ava felt ready to take that step. The days after Dominic's offer were filled with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty for Ava. She had never imagined being given such a responsibility, let alone the opportunity to own a stake in La Belle Cuisine. It was more than she had ever hoped for, but with it came the pressure of making the right decision. Every night, after her shift, she would sit in her small apartment, staring out at the city lights, contemplating what this offer would mean for her future. She had come so far, from being a quiet maid in the background to becoming a leader, respected by her colleagues and trusted by Dominic. But now, the weight of the decision to take on even more was heavy. She knew this could be the opportunity of a lifetime, but the fear of failing lingered. She had always been the one to work hard in the shadows, never seeking the spotlight. Now, Dominic was offering her a chance to step into it, to lead and to own a part of something that had been a dream for so many others. But was she truly ready for that responsibility? As she wrestled with her thoughts, Ava couldn't help but think back to everything that had brought her here. Her journey had been long and difficult, filled with moments of doubt and struggle. But each time, she had pushed through, growing stronger and more determined. The memory of Dominic's words echoed in her mind. You have the skills, the drive, and the vision to take this restaurant to new heights. She knew he believed in her, but did she believe in herself? The answer came to her slowly, in the quiet moments when she was alone with her thoughts. She had always been capable. She had always done what was asked of her, and more. She had earned her place in this world, and now, she was being given the chance to take it further. She wasn't going to let fear hold her back. Ava's decision came one night after a particularly challenging dinner service. The restaurant had been busier than usual, and the pressure was on. The staff had been running back and forth, keeping up with the flow of orders and trying to keep everything on track. Ava had been in the thick of it, coordinating between the kitchen and the waitstaff, ensuring that every customer was taken care of. She felt the weight of the responsibility on her shoulders, but instead of feeling overwhelmed, she felt alive. She was in control. When the rush finally died down, and the last guests left the restaurant, Ava stood by the front door, looking out at the quiet streets. The restaurant was still and peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos of the evening. It was in that moment that she realized the truth. She was ready. Ready for the next step. Ready for more. The following day, she made her decision. She walked into the restaurant early, before anyone else had arrived, and found Dominic sitting at the bar, going over some papers. She took a deep breath before walking over to him. Sir, she said, her voice steady. I've thought about your offer. Dominic looked up, his expression unreadable. And, he asked, his voice calm but expectant. I'm in, Ava said, her heart racing. I want to take the next step. I want to be a part of this restaurant's future. Dominic's eyes softened, and for the first time, Ava saw a genuine smile tug at the corner of his lips. I knew you would, he said, his voice warm. You've earned it, Ava. I'm proud of you. In that moment, Ava felt a rush of emotions. Relief, pride, excitement. She had made the right choice, and now, she was ready to embrace it fully. The path ahead was still uncertain, but she knew one thing for sure. She was no longer just the maid in the background. She was a part of something much bigger, and for the first time, she truly believed that she belonged here. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of meetings, contracts, and planning. Ava worked closely with Dominic and the restaurant's management team to formalize her new role and her stake in the business. It wasn't easy, and there were moments of doubt, but she pushed through each challenge with determination. As she learned the ins and outs of running a restaurant from a business perspective, she was struck by how much responsibility Dominic had placed in her hands. He trusted her completely, and that trust became the driving force behind everything she did. One evening, as the restaurant grew busier, Dominic pulled Ava aside to talk. You're doing well, he said, his voice serious but approving. But remember, this is just the beginning. You have the potential to make La Belle Cuisine a name everyone will know. I've seen the way you handle yourself. Keep pushing forward. His words were both a challenge and a reassurance. Ava nodded, her determination growing stronger. She was no longer just a part of the restaurant. She was now a key figure in its success. The following months were a blur of activity as Ava fully embraced her new role. She worked tirelessly, learning the business side of things, managing the staff, and making decisions that would shape the future of the restaurant. The other employees began to look to her for guidance, and she found herself becoming the leader Dominic had always known she could be. Her vision for the restaurant started to take shape. Ava had always believed in the importance of quality, consistency, and providing an unforgettable experience for every guest. Now, as a part owner, she could implement those ideas, taking La Belle Cuisine to new heights. But she never lost sight of what had brought her here. The hard work, the determination, and the quiet strength she had always carried with her. And as the restaurant continued to grow and thrive, Ava knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning. She had found her place, and she was ready to lead, ready to make her mark, and ready to prove to herself, and to the world, that she was more than just the maid in the background. Months passed, and Ava settled into her new role with a sense of ease that had previously seemed impossible. As the lead supervisor and part owner of La Belle Cuisine, her days were filled with decisions, challenges, and triumphs. The restaurant continued to thrive, and she felt a deep sense of pride in what she had helped build. Dominic's trust in her had proved to be well placed. She was no longer just the quiet maid who worked behind the scenes. Ava had become the heart of the restaurant, the one who kept everything running smoothly, from the smallest details to the largest decisions. Her confidence continued to grow as she managed the staff, handled customer relations, and worked alongside Dominic to shape the future of the business. Despite all the success, Ava never lost sight of where she came from. She kept a low profile with the staff, remaining humble and approachable. Her leadership style was rooted in respect and understanding. She knew the value of hard work, and she made sure her team felt appreciated for their efforts. As the months went by, Ava's vision for the restaurant began to take shape. She implemented new ideas to improve the dining experience, focusing on exceptional service, high-quality ingredients, and creating a welcoming environment for everyone who walked through the doors. She worked closely with Dominic to ensure the restaurant's success, but as time passed, she found herself stepping into the role more and more. She had earned her place, and now, she was truly a part of the restaurant's future. One evening, after a particularly busy night, Ava found herself alone in the restaurant, checking the accounts and reviewing the day's performance. She had a few minutes of quiet before the team finished cleaning up. The soft glow of the restaurant's lights reflected off the polished surfaces, and she couldn't help but admire how far they had come. The place had been nothing more than a dream when she first started working there, but now it was a thriving business, and she had played a pivotal role in its success. Ava leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. She had built something meaningful, something she could be proud of, but she was also starting to feel the weight of her responsibilities more than ever before. She had the chance to take the restaurant to new heights, But with that came the pressure of keeping up with the demands. She didn't want to let anyone down, especially Dominic. He had taken a risk by offering her a partnership, and she wasn't going to waste it. As she sat there lost in thought, the sound of footsteps broke her concentration. She turned to see Dominic walking toward her. "You're still here?" he asked, his tone light, though there was a hint of concern in his voice. Ava smiled and stood up, a little surprised by the sudden appearance of her mentor. "Just finishing up," she said. "I've been going over the numbers for the day." Dominic walked over to the table and took a seat across from her. "How are things going?" he asked, studying her closely. Ava took a deep breath before answering. "Everything's running smoothly," she said. "The team's working well together, and we've had some great feedback from the customers. But I'm starting to feel the weight of it all. There's so much to manage, so many decisions to make. I don't want to let anyone down." Dominic leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving her face. "I can see it in your eyes," he said. "You've always had the drive, Ava. You're just starting to realize how much you're capable of." Ava's heart skipped a beat. She had always respected Dominic, but hearing him speak so directly about her was both comforting and overwhelming. "I've never done anything like this before," she admitted. "It's not just about running the restaurant anymore. It's about making decisions that affect the future, and that's a lot of pressure." Dominic nodded slowly, his expression serious but understanding. "I get it," he said, "but I've seen you grow. You've already proven yourself. You're not just managing the restaurant, Ava, you're shaping its future. And you're doing it with grace and confidence." Ava felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. She had worked so hard to get here, and now she was starting to see the fruits of her labor. "Thank you, Dominic," she said softly. "I couldn't have done this without you. You took a chance on me, and I won't let you down." Dominic smiled, the usual coldness in his eyes replaced with something warmer. "You've never let me down," he said, "and I don't think you ever will." The conversation lingered in the air as Dominic stood up to leave. "I'm proud of you, Ava," he added before walking toward the door. "You've come a long way." Ava watched him go, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. She had earned his respect, and now she was beginning to believe in herself in ways she never had before. As the night wore on, Ava stayed in the restaurant, reflecting on everything she had accomplished. She had stepped into a world she never thought possible for someone like her. But now, she was no longer the maid in the shadows. She was a leader, a business partner, and a key figure in the success of La Belle Cuisine. And as she locked up the restaurant and prepared to leave for the night, she knew that this was only the beginning. The future was hers to shape, and for the first time in her life, she was ready to take on whatever came next. Months passed, and Ava's confidence continued to grow as the heart of La Belle Cuisine. With each decision, each new responsibility, she felt more in control, more capable, and more sure of her place in the restaurant. Her partnership with Dominic had solidified, and the future of the restaurant was brighter than ever. She had embraced her role with the same quiet determination that had guided her through the earlier stages of her journey, and now she was seeing the fruits of her labor. One evening, as the restaurant bustled with customers enjoying their meals, Ava found herself in the kitchen again, watching as the chefs worked with precision and efficiency. The familiar rhythm of the restaurant comforted her. This had become her world. The staff trusted her, and the customers returned again and again, drawn not just by the food, but by the atmosphere that Ava had helped create. She was proud of the family atmosphere she had cultivated within the team, where everyone's role was valued, no matter how big or small. As she walked through the kitchen, she spotted Dominic standing by the door, watching her. His gaze was steady, and for a moment, she felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. It had been Dominic who had seen something in her that no one else had, who had believed she could be more than just a maid in the shadows. He had given her a chance when no one else would have. "How's everything going?" Dominic asked, his voice calm and steady. Ava smiled, knowing exactly what he was referring to. "Everything's running smoothly," she replied. "The team is working well together. We're getting the best reviews we've ever had, and the customers are happy." Dominic nodded, his expression unreadable. "You've done well," he said, his approval clear in his words. Ava's heart swelled with pride. She had worked so hard to get here, and hearing that Dominic was pleased with her efforts meant more than anything. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I couldn't have done it without the team." Dominic's gaze softened. "You've built something here, Ava. You've turned this restaurant into more than just a business. It's a place people come to experience something special, and you're the reason for that. Ava felt a lump form in her throat at his words. She had always been so focused on the day-to-day tasks, on making sure everything ran smoothly, that she hadn't allowed herself to fully appreciate how far she had come. She wasn't just running a restaurant anymore. She was part of something bigger, something meaningful. Thank you, she said again, her voice soft with emotion. I appreciate everything you've done for me, Dominic. Dominic gave a small nod. I saw something in you from the beginning, and I knew you'd do great things. His words lingered in the air as they stood there in the kitchen, the bustling sounds of the restaurant all around them. Ava realized, in that moment, that her journey had come full circle. She had started out with nothing but a desire to work hard, to make a living for herself and her family. And now, she had a future, one that was hers to shape. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a leader, a business partner, and someone who had proven her worth to herself and everyone around her. Later that night, as Ava stood by the bar, finishing up her paperwork, she reflected on everything that had brought her here. The restaurant had become more than just a place of work. It had become a reflection of who she was, a place built on hard work, respect, and the belief that anyone could rise above their circumstances. Ava had done it, and she had done it on her terms. She had worked her way up, step by step, earning the respect of those around her. And as she looked out at the restaurant, filled with satisfied customers and happy staff, she knew that she had created something lasting. As the clock struck midnight, and the last of the customers left the restaurant, Ava stood by the front door, locking up for the night. The city streets were quiet, the lights of the restaurant still glowing behind her. She smiled to herself, knowing that tomorrow would bring another challenge. But it was a challenge she was ready for. This was her life now. She had found her place, and she was no longer just the invisible worker in the background. She was a key part of something beautiful. Ava walked out of the restaurant, taking one last look before she left for the night. She felt a sense of fulfillment that she hadn't known was possible. The journey had been long, but it had been worth it. She had built a future for herself, and she was just getting started. As the months went by, La Belle Cuisine continued to flourish, and so did Ava. Her newfound responsibilities had become second nature, and she had learned to navigate the intricate balance between leadership and teamwork. The restaurant thrived under her guidance, and the customers kept returning, drawn not just by the food, but by the energy and dedication Ava had instilled in the staff. There was an undeniable sense of family in the restaurant now, one that Ava had worked tirelessly to cultivate. She had proven herself as a capable leader, and her vision for the restaurant had begun to shape its identity. Her decisions were respected, and the team looked to her for guidance. She wasn't just the face of La Belle Cuisine, she was its backbone. But despite all her success, there were moments when Ava couldn't shake the feeling that she was still just a small-town girl who had somehow found her way into this world. It was something that lingered in her mind, though she pushed it aside most days. One evening, as Ava was preparing for a particularly busy dinner service, she received a call from her mother. The conversation was brief, but it left Ava feeling unsettled. Her mother, though always strong, had been struggling with her health lately. It was a reminder that, despite all her accomplishments, there were still things that Ava couldn't control. She hung up the phone and stood there for a moment, staring out at the restaurant floor. The familiar sounds of clinking glasses, the soft murmur of conversations, and the rhythm of the kitchen felt distant now. Ava had come so far, but her family, her mother, was still at the center of her heart. She had promised herself that she would take care of her, no matter what it took. Just as she was about to go back to work, Dominic walked in. He was alone this time, and his usual calm presence immediately filled the space. He nodded at her, acknowledging her before walking up to the bar where she was standing. "Everything all right?" he asked, his voice gentle, though there was a noticeable hint of concern in his eyes. Ava hesitated for a moment, then nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just a call from home." "It's nothing," she replied, though she knew that wasn't entirely true. Dominic studied her for a moment, sensing something was off. "You don't have to pretend with me, Ava," he said quietly. "You've been carrying a lot on your shoulders." Ava looked at him, the weight of everything she had been holding back pressing on her. She took a deep breath and, for the first time in a long while, let the walls she had built around herself come down. "It's my mother," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "She's been getting worse. I'm trying to keep everything together here, but I feel like I'm stretched thin." Dominic's expression softened, and he moved closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to carry it all alone," he said quietly. "You've built something incredible here, but that doesn't mean you can't lean on others." Ava blinked back the tears that threatened to spill, grateful for his understanding. She had always been the one to take care of everyone else, to carry the weight of everything on her own. But in that moment, she realized that it was okay to ask for help. It was okay to let others in. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Dominic gave her a reassuring smile. "You've done more than anyone could have imagined, Ava. You've built this place from the ground up. You don't need to carry everything yourself. You've earned the right to lean on those who care about you." Ava nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she wasn't alone in this. Dominic's words gave her the strength she needed to move forward. After their conversation, Ava felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew she couldn't do it all, but she also knew that she didn't have to. She had a team that supported her, a family in the restaurant that trusted her. That evening, as the dinner service kicked into full gear, Ava was more focused than ever. She worked with the staff, keeping everything running smoothly, while also keeping an eye on the phone in case her mother needed her. Every now and then, she would glance at Dominic, who was busy in the office, overseeing the operations. His presence had always been a steadying force for her, and now, it seemed even more so. As the night came to a close, and the last customers left the restaurant, Ava found herself standing by the bar, watching the empty dining room. It had been a long day, but a successful one. She had faced challenges, but she had made it through. Dominic approached her again, this time with a drink in hand. "You did well tonight," he said, his voice warm. Ava smiled, feeling a sense of gratitude. "Thank you. It's been a tough week, but we made it through." Dominic gave her a nod of approval. "You always do," he said. "You've built something strong here, and you're not going to let anything tear it down." Ava looked around the restaurant, her eyes lingering on the familiar faces of the staff. She had built something she could be proud of, and no matter what challenges lay ahead, she knew she was strong enough to face them. With Dominic by her side and her team behind her, she was ready for whatever came next. The future of La Belle Cuisine was brighter than ever, and Ava was ready to take it to new heights. It had been several months since Ava had fully embraced her new role, and with each passing day, her confidence grew. She had proven herself as a leader and part owner of La Belle Cuisine, but now, the challenges she faced were becoming more complex. The restaurant was thriving, and her hard work had paid off. Yet, despite her success, there were moments when Ava found herself questioning how much further she could push herself. The pressure was mounting. As the manager, she had to oversee everything, from the kitchen to the front of the house, and it seemed as though every day brought a new set of obstacles. But with Dominic's guidance and the team's trust, she had learned to navigate each situation with the poise and strength she had cultivated. One evening, after the restaurant had closed and the last of the staff had left, Ava stood alone in the dining room, staring out at the empty tables. She had just finished a long shift, and the familiar hum of the restaurant's energy had been replaced by an eerie stillness. The silence felt foreign to her now. It had become a place of comfort, full of activity, laughter, and the occasional chaos. But tonight, she was left alone with her thoughts. She ran a hand over her tired face and sighed. She was grateful for all the progress the restaurant had made, but she couldn't ignore the fatigue that had begun to weigh on her. She had worked tirelessly to make La Belle Cuisine a success, and yet there were still moments when she felt like she was carrying the weight of the world. Her phone buzzed, breaking her thoughts. It was a text from her mother. Ava quickly opened the message, hoping for some positive news, but as she read the words, her heart sank. Her mother's health had taken a turn for the worse, and the doctors had advised that she needed more care. Ava closed her eyes, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. Her mother had always been her rock, the one person she could count on, and now she was facing a reality that Ava had been dreading. She had always promised herself that she would take care of her family, and now, the time had come to make good on that promise. As Ava sat there, the weight of everything bearing down on her, she heard a soft knock at the door. Startled, she looked up to see Dominic standing in the doorway, his figure framed by the dim light from the hallway. "Is everything okay?" he asked, his voice gentle but with a hint of concern. Ava quickly wiped away a tear and forced a smile. "Yeah, I'm fine," she lied, trying to hide the emotions she was feeling. Dominic didn't buy it. He walked into the room, his eyes narrowing slightly as he took in her weary appearance. "You're not fine," he said, his voice firm but not unkind. "What's going on, Ava?" Ava hesitated for a moment, unsure of whether she should share her worries with him. But something about his presence, the way he had always been there for her, made her feel like she could trust him. "It's my mom," she finally said, her voice shaky. "She's not doing well. The doctor said she needs more care, and I don't know what to do." Dominic walked over to her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "I'm sorry to hear that," he said quietly. "You don't have to go through this alone, you know." Ava shook her head, her emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "I've always had to take care of things myself," she admitted. "I don't want to burden anyone with this." Dominic's expression softened, and he crouched down to meet her eye level. "You've carried a lot, Ava. You've built this place from the ground up. But that doesn't mean you have to carry everything on your own. We're a team here. If you need to take some time off to be with your mom, I'll make sure everything runs smoothly. You don't have to do this by yourself." Ava felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had been so caught up in trying to prove herself, in trying to do everything on her own, that she had forgotten how to lean on others. Dominic was offering her exactly what she needed: support, understanding, and the reassurance that it was okay to ask for help. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what to say." Dominic gave her a small, reassuring smile. "You don't need to say anything. I'm here for you, Ava. We'll figure this out together." For the first time in what felt like forever, Ava allowed herself to fully take in Dominic's words. She had always been strong, always determined to take care of things on her own. But now, with Dominic's support, she realized that it was okay to rely on others, to take a step back when she needed to. As they stood together in the quiet restaurant, Ava felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. The road ahead would still be challenging, but she wasn't alone. She had a team that believed in her, a mentor who cared, and the strength within herself to face whatever came next. The next morning, Ava called her family and made the decision to spend more time with her mother. It wasn't easy, but it was the right thing to do. She knew that La Belle Cuisine would continue to thrive with the team she had built, and that Dominic would be there to support her in every way possible. The future was still uncertain, but Ava now understood that she didn't have to face it alone. She had come so far, and now, for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with the support and love of the people who cared about her. The weeks following Ava's decision to spend more time with her mother were filled with reflection and growth. For the first time in years, she found herself stepping back from the whirlwind of running La Belle Cuisine. The time away allowed her to recharge and reconnect with the core reasons she had worked so hard in the first place. Her mother's health was still fragile, and Ava made sure to be there, offering the love and support her family needed, though it was difficult to balance her newfound role at the restaurant with her personal life. She realized the importance of taking care of herself and her loved ones. During this time, Dominic's support never wavered. He checked in with Ava frequently, making sure everything at the restaurant was running smoothly, even as he respected her space. Their partnership had deepened beyond business. There was a genuine understanding between them, a shared trust that had only strengthened over the past months. Ava knew she couldn't have come this far without him. When Ava returned to the restaurant, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her time away had given her a fresh perspective. She had always been driven by the desire to succeed, to prove herself, but now, she was focused on something deeper: balance. She had worked hard to build the restaurant into a success, but she now understood that true success wasn't just about business. It was about having the strength to nurture every part of her life. That evening, as she walked through the door of La Belle Cuisine, she was greeted by the familiar sound of clinking glasses and the hum of conversation. The restaurant felt like home. It wasn't just the place where she worked, it was the heart of everything she had built. The staff was buzzing with energy, and the atmosphere was vibrant, but it wasn't overwhelming. It was a reflection of Ava's leadership, a place where everyone was working together, supporting one another. As Ava walked through the restaurant, She noticed how much it had changed since she had taken on a larger role. The energy was lighter, the pace steadier. The waitstaff was efficient but not rushed. The kitchen hummed in harmony, and the customers were happy, enjoying the food and the ambience. She smiled to herself, proud of what she had helped create. Dominic was at the bar, speaking with a few of the regular customers. His presence was reassuring, and Ava couldn't help but feel grateful for the trust he had placed in her. As she approached him, he turned to her, a small but genuine smile on his face. "How's everything going?" he asked. "Good," she said, her voice steady. "Everything's running smoothly. I've learned a lot during my time off." Dominic raised an eyebrow. "And what did you learn?" Ava took a moment to gather her thoughts. "I learned that it's okay to step back when you need to," she said, her voice quieter now. "I used to think I had to do everything myself, but I realize now that it's about balance. About taking care of what matters most, while still giving everything you've got." Dominic's smile grew. "That's one of the most important lessons, Ava," he said. "I'm proud of you. You've built something incredible here, and I'm glad to see you understanding the importance of balance." Ava nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. She had been so focused on the future, on the pressure to always keep moving forward, that she had almost forgotten to take a moment to appreciate how far she had come. The restaurant was thriving, but more importantly, so was she. She was no longer just surviving. She was living, and she was leading with a newfound sense of clarity. Later that evening, as the dinner service came to a close, Dominic pulled her aside. He had always been a man of few words, but tonight, there was a different kind of sincerity in his tone. "Ava," he said, his voice calm but direct, "I've been thinking about everything you've done for this place, for the team, for me. You've become not just a business partner, but a true leader. You've earned my respect, and I don't say that lightly." Ava felt a lump form in her throat at his words. She had always admired Dominic, but hearing him speak so openly about her made her realize just how much she had grown. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without your support." Dominic gave a small, approving nod. "You've done the hard work. You've earned this." He paused, looking out at the restaurant before turning back to her. "I think it's time we start thinking about expanding," he said, his tone shifting from reflective to forward-looking. "The future is wide open, Ava, and I want you to be a part of that future, leading this place to even greater heights." Ava's heart skipped a beat. The future had always felt like something distant, something she couldn't control. But now, with Dominic by her side and a clear vision ahead, she felt ready to take that next step. "I'm ready," she said, her voice filled with certainty. "Let's do it." Dominic smiled, and for the first time, Ava saw something more than just the business partner she had always known. There was a shared vision between them, an understanding that together, they could build something even more extraordinary. As they stood there, looking out over the restaurant, Ava realized that the journey was far from over. She had come so far, but there was still so much more to achieve. And with Dominic, her team, and her newfound confidence, she knew she was ready to face whatever came next. The future was hers to shape, and she was prepared to take it on, one step at a time.